Good morning, fellow Plex server owners. This video will not interest most of you. It's a general troubleshooting checklist for Michael, who's having trouble with his Plex server running on his Synology 1621 XS NAS, but he's hosting Plex, the Plex server, on a Dell i7 6700, probably for the older iGPU in that unit, because the I believe it's a Xeon processor in the 1621 XS does not have an iGPU on board. So he's had an issue where it worked and then it's taking forever for it to load on client devices. So first off, just some general things. Mike, if I can call you Mike, let's make sure that there's no issues with the way that your Synology NAS is set up. And I don't have a better recommendation than following Will at his YouTube Space Rex channel. This guy helped me out so much. You know, he doesn't know me, but just following his videos, he helped me out so much with my initial DS 1019 Plus NAS I bought in the spring of 2019. I later bought a DS 1520 Plus. I have a expansion unit on each one. The older setup is just for backup, and the newer one is mainly just for Plex. So he has videos on how to set the NAS up. He has different ones. He can show you how to maximize your SMB settings, which I had to do. So just generally, watch one or two of his setup videos for a new Synology NAS owner. It may feel like wasted time, but you'll see some settings that may have been missed that may or may not have anything to do with your problems. But even if you missed a few settings and they're unrelated, you'll just be better off for meeting Will in his Space Rex YouTube channel. So that's my first general advice. The second thing is, all I know how to do is comparative troubleshooting. So I've already thrown my own remote access video to you to make sure you're not double natted. But I didn't ask the question if you've changed ISPs, but I think you would have mentioned that. If this is a problem with local streams, that's where we'll continue. If it's only a problem with remote streams, and I'm sure you would have mentioned that too, double check with your ISP to make sure they didn't convert to CGNAT. But if you ran the little easy test in the Plex remote access troubleshooting document that's linked in my other video I sent you, CGNAT is just another form of double NAT. So if the test doesn't show a double NAT, it doesn't show a CGNAT either. If it does show a double NAT, well, if the results are in a certain range, that then proves that your double NAT is CGNAT, which is before anything even gets to you. Like, you don't have to be double natted locally to have the same effects of a double NAT, because CGNAT really is a double NAT. And that sounds like a lot of doublespeak, doesn't it? So what I want to show you is that you can troubleshoot with your own Synology NAS with another Plex server installed without harming your current Plex server install, because your NAS is capable of running Docker containers, and you haven't said whether you're installed as a package. But if I go into Package Manager on this NAS, you see I have a test server already spun up, but it's not running. And that's because the test server that's running on this NAS is running in a Docker container. Okay, did I click that, or needs a double click? All right, so I installed Portainer to then use that to install Plex, which is needed to install Plex server in a Docker container with hardware acceleration. Now on your NAS that doesn't matter, you don't have hardware acceleration, but I would install a test Plex server right on your NAS, even though you're running Plex server off from your NAS, just to see if you have an issue with a new test server there. And you can do it in a container, or you can do it in a package. And if you want to play with a container, let me see what I have saved. This Marius hosting site is fantastic. Let me find Plex server. And all my videos are unscripted, so sometimes it's a stream of consciousness, and that's just my style. Like it, leave it, love it, hate it. But if you learn something, who cares, right? All right, I have to think instead of talk. I think he has a search option, which I probably should have used. All right, let's use the search option. All right, so you don't have hardware acceleration. So you can install it as a scheduled task to make it easy. Now the only thing I want to double check before I leave this is Marius is not good on setting up a path example for you. And everybody in this group has heard of a trash guides install, and that requires one shared media folder. So let me just explain the path. If you're going to run this in a Docker, this is where it is only concerning. This statement is fine because this is the application files for Plex inside the Docker folder. This, you won't know what to do. But let me decipher this path, or even this path. Everything to the left of the colon is a real path in the Synology NAS. Everything to the right is just a virtual path that shows up inside Plex when you go to add a library. So my path would be volume1/Plex because I've named my shared media folder simply, and that's it. Inside my Plex shared media folder, I use a sorting system. I have sort folders for each library type. And then inside those sort folders, I have individual library folders. So on my own system, and not the example I give others, the shared media folder is simply named Plex, and then my movie sort folder is named movie, and inside that there's another movie subfolder for my main movie library, and then a folder called documentary for my documentary movie library, concert, performing arts, and so on. My TV show sort folder is just named TV, and then there's another folder in it named TV, and that's my main TV show library folder, and then TV Kids and TV Anime, and so on. So I like that nested structure. So this is a confusing path statement. While all the other knowledge here, all the other instructions are top-notch for Docker containers on a Synology NAS. And you don't need to know any of this to use a package install of Plex. When you install the package, it tells you how to go in and set permissions for your user, and it's very simple. And I have videos showing that on my channel, how to do that. All right, so set up that test server on this device and see if it behaves normally. Because then we can pinpoint that there's nothing wrong with your Synology NAS where it's serving up media, and there's nothing wrong with your local networking infrastructure. What I don't know is how you're running Plex on your Dell i7 6700. And you're running channels DVR as well. Kudos to you. It's a great DVR. I do that too. So, over on the other device, you can troubleshoot too. Shut it down, pop the drive out, and pop a used SSD into it, and install Plex under your favorite OS. If you're using Windows, maybe try Ubuntu. Now let me talk about that because that's wrong window. That's a very easy install. So here I am at my own YouTube studio channel, and I'm going to search for Ubuntu because I've done a few videos, if I could spell it. Okay, so show all. Okay, so I do have a little misinformation in this Ubuntu 24.04 install as a snap package. But it's still a good video. And I'll explain the misinformation after I explain why this would be a great test install on your Dell. Is it an OptiPlex maybe? So this installs quickly. If you make a Ventoy, that's Ventoy, download that program and install it if you're running Windows. Grab any flash drive, but I would suggest a quality one to keep reusing. Something like 32 or 64, even 128 gigabytes. Pop that in, format that as a Ventoy flash drive. It then becomes a bootable device. And when you're not booted into it, you can simply copy Linux ISOs to it. So you can download the Ubuntu 24.04 ISO along with other Linux ISOs or even a Windows ISO. You can copy it to the Ventoy flash drive, press the boot key on your computer when you're booting up, and you can simply choose among whatever ISOs you've moved to that flash drive to then boot into. Ubuntu takes about 10 minutes to install. It's dead simple to install. And then if you install Plex server from their Snap Package store, it's a different version of Linux. All the folder structure is the same. It's a different version of Plex server under Linux. All the application folder is the same, but Ubuntu has changed things where you're not faced with learning the dreaded Linux permission college level course you need to take in order for the Plex server to see local media, USB media, and even how to mount a remote share. I wouldn't recommend this for a brand new Plex server trying to connect to storage someplace else. I've got Unraid videos that show it's stupidly simple to do it in that environment. But this makes a great little Plex server if someone's going to run off USB media or just some media on their main boot drive. Dead simple to use. And now the limitation. Docker is Linux, so I could install the regular Plex server from Plex themselves under Ubuntu, under Mint, under Pop! OS, under Fedora, under any Linux I want. And that's portable. I can move it in and out of a Docker container someplace. I can move it to another Plex server. This special install of Ubuntu as a snap package isn't portable. And I don't know why. I just quickly tried to move it and it couldn't. And I did it again to make sure I wasn't making a mistake. And I could move it, but it wouldn't open. And that's where I stopped. So this is not portable, so it's not good for the long haul. I'd almost use Debian instead with Docker setup, and I have a video on that too. But this is a great thing to troubleshoot your actual device. So once you find out that it may not be anything to do with Plex, but something going on with Plex, then we can go on. And you can even take the step of recreating another Windows Plex install too. So I really doubt it's something with Windows. But the last question I want to ask is to explore this possibility. Do you have a UPS for your NAS? And is your Dell computer plugged into it where your Plex server is running? So where am I? Power and hardware. If I go to UPS, oh, this is interesting. Why is this not right? I guess I have to take a trip down to my basement. All right, so let's do this instead. Bring that off screen because the title bar will show my quick connect information briefly. Okay, so this is my newer Synology NAS where my Plex media actually is. Let's go to power and hardware. Okay, and you see I do have a UPS connected to it. and I have my 11th gen Intel NUC that's running unrated as a Docker host connected to it also. So the USB cable that came with the UPS plugs into the Synology NAS. And it's very simple to set up in these settings. And I have everything set down to shut down, I want to say securely, but gently, or shut down gracefully is what they say, after 2 minutes of power loss. Well, through the power of NUT, the NUT protocol, NUT, I was easily able to add a NUT add-on to the unraid settings for my NUC, and then I simply took my IP address of this NAS and plugged it in on both sides, and now when this shuts down due to a power loss, the NUC is already plugged into the battery side of this NAS. Synology tells the unraid box through the NUT protocol to shut down with it, and when power is restored, they both start back up. And naturally, I had to figure out how to delay everything under the unraid install, because that little 11th gen i5 NUC starts up very fast, and I wanted to give it time for the Synology NAS to be up and serving media. So I'm sure you can do something similarly, and this is a long-winded way of asking, did a recent power loss event correspond with the trouble you're having? At this stage of the game, I wouldn't even have my server on if I had to replace my UPS. I'd order a new UPS and wait until it arrived and got it configured before I even ran my server. And that would be a big disappointment to my family and friends, but I'm not risking a sudden power loss event. I'm not risking a spike. My UPS has a better protection against surges than a $20 or $25 or $35 surge suppressor you're buying at Home Depot or Lowe's. So this is my model UPS. The battery is a wear item, so it's not going to last forever, but protection will if you replace the battery when it's needed. So that's kind of where my brain's going right now. Comparative troubleshooting steps. Eliminate your network first, and that's a quick little server on your Synology NAS. Both Plex servers can operate at the same time. What you can't do is you can't run both a packaged version of Plex and a Docker version of Plex on the same Synology NAS, and I'll say you can't easily. There may be a way, I'm just not aware of it. But you don't have to shut down your regular server to spin up a test server. And all you have to do is, let's go to File Station, create a separate shared media folder for it, or give permission to look at your regular shared media folder. This is my normal shared media folder. This is a test shared media folder for a lot of my videos. This is another test shared folder I created on a second volume just to help one person out who wanted to expand and create a new volume with an expansion unit and wanted to have some libraries on each, and I showed that person how you could actually keep movies or shows on the main volume and then put new ones on the second volume and have one library point to both. So comparative troubleshooting is all I know. I don't really have a good idea what's going on with your system, but if you look in enough areas and you ask enough questions and you give real answers to all those questions, something's bound to pop up. Okay, Mike, I hope you solve your problem and keep me posted along the way. Let me know what you've done, and if anybody else has watched this video, hey, I appreciate it, and happy Plexing.